The small farming town of Adams, Tennessee had always been peaceful, a place where the golden fields swayed gently under the southern sun, and neighbors greeted each other with slow, easy smiles. But in 1817, something sinister began to stir in the Bell family's homestead, a haunting that would become the most terrifying legend in American folklore. John Bell, a respected farmer, had recently purchased a large stretch of land near the Red River. Life was simple until the day he noticed a strange creature lurking among the crops. It had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit, its eyes glowing like burning coal. When John fired his rifle, the beast vanished into the mist without a trace. That night, the whispering began. At first, the Bell children thought it was the wind, soft voices brushing past their ears as they drifted to sleep. But soon, the whispers turned into words, murmurs that called their names, laughed at them, and repeated their prayers backwards. Betsy, the youngest, would wake screaming, her bed shaking violently as if invisible hands were trying to pull her away. John tried to keep it secret. The Bells were God-fearing people, and talk of spirits could ruin a family's name. But the torment grew worse. Doors opened by themselves, chairs scraped across the floor at night, and a raspy voice began to echo through the halls, sometimes mocking, sometimes threatening. "I am the one you wronged," it hissed one night, "and I will not rest until the Bell name is cursed." The family prayed harder, but the entity's power grew. Visitors to the Bell home witnessed the haunting firsthand, objects flying, scratches appearing on skin, and the voice of a woman that called herself Kate. She claimed to be a witch who had been wronged by John Bell long ago. And as autumn deepened, the Bell family realized this was no ordinary haunting. It was a curse, one woven with hatred, vengeance, and something older than death itself. By the winter of 1817, the Bell home had become a place of dread. What began as whispers now grew into full conversations, taunting, cruel, and unrelenting. The voice would echo from the walls, the rafters, even from beneath the floorboards. It spoke in a woman's tone, shrill and hateful one moment, eerily calm the next. "John Bell," it would sneer, "you cannot hide from me." The witch, who called herself Kate Batts, claimed she had been cheated by John in a land deal years ago. Some neighbors remembered the real Kate Batts, an eccentric woman who practiced strange folk rituals and was rumored to curse those who crossed her. When she died, many thought her madness went with her, but the Bells began to believe her spirit had returned, vengeful and full of fury. The haunting worsened. Betsy Bell was the main target. Invisible hands slapped her face, yanked her hair, and left red marks across her arms. Her cries could be heard echoing through the cold Tennessee nights. When the family prayed, the witch mocked them by reciting scripture backward or singing hymns in a grotesque imitation of a choir. Even guests who came to help were not spared. One evening, Reverend James Johnston, a local preacher, stayed the night to witness the strange occurrences. At midnight, he was awakened by the voice calling his name. "Reverend Johnston," it hissed, "does your God protect you here?" His Bible was torn from his hands and thrown across the room. The preacher fled by morning, pale and trembling. Word spread through Adams. Curious locals gathered outside the Bell home hoping to hear the witch's voice for themselves. And they did. Sometimes it spoke plainly, gossiping about neighbors' secrets or mocking passers-by. Other times it screamed in anger, rattling the windows and shaking the walls.
The Bell Witch, as people began to call her, seemed to know everything, past, present, and future. She predicted births, deaths, and storms, and when she laughed, it sounded like wind tearing through dead trees. The Bells tried to live their lives, but the haunting left them broken, sleepless, and terrified. John Bell's health began to decline. He complained of weakness and numbness. Betsy, too, grew pale and withdrawn, haunted by the witch's cruel laughter that followed her everywhere. And the voice, Kate's voice, promised that the worst was coming.
By the spring of 1818, the Bell Witch had chosen her favorite victim, Betsy Bell. The once cheerful and bright young girl now lived in constant terror. She could feel the witch's presence even in daylight, like cold air breathing down her neck. Whenever Betsy laughed, the voice would hiss in her ear, "Don't you dare be happy." The attacks grew vicious. At night, Betsy's blankets would be ripped away. She'd wake choking, invisible fingers pressing against her throat. Her hair was pulled so violently that clumps were found scattered across the floor. Bruises and welts appeared on her body without cause. "You will not marry Joshua Gardner," the witch shrieked one night, her voice echoing from nowhere and everywhere. Joshua Gardner was Betsy's childhood sweetheart, and their engagement had brought her a flicker of joy amid the darkness. But after that night, the torment intensified. Whenever Joshua visited, the air in the Bell house grew colder, and the laughter of the witch filled every room. One evening, as Joshua reached to comfort Betsy, she was thrown to the ground by an unseen force. The witch's voice bellowed, "Leave her, or suffer my wrath." Terrified and heartbroken, Joshua soon ended their courtship. The witch seemed to feed on Betsy's despair. The girl stopped eating, stopped sleeping. She'd stare into empty corners, whispering, "Please, leave me alone." But the spirit only laughed louder. It mimicked Betsy's voice, taunting her family with cruel imitations, sometimes pleading for help, sometimes cursing them all. John Bell tried everything: prayer, fasting, even charms given by neighboring farmers who claimed to know old mountain magic. But nothing silenced the witch. The Bell children avoided their sister's room at night, too frightened by the sounds of sobbing and slapping that echoed through the walls. Once, Betsy awoke to find her mirror covered in strange scratches, symbols she didn't recognize. Beneath them, written in what looked like soot, were the words, "She belongs to me." Neighbors whispered that Betsy was possessed. Some said the witch had grown jealous of her beauty. Others believed Betsy carried the spirit's curse from a past life. Whatever the truth, the Bell Witch had made her intent clear. She wanted to destroy the Bell family, beginning with their beloved daughter. And her vengeance was far from complete. By the end of 1820, John Bell had become a frail shadow of the strong farmer he once was. His hands trembled, his vision blurred, and a strange numbness crept through his limbs. The doctor could find no cause, calling it a mystery of the nerves. But the family knew better. The witch had promised vengeance, and she was keeping her word. Every day, her voice tormented him. "Old Jack Bell," she would mock, "your time is coming soon." Sometimes she'd whisper right beside his ear, other times shout from the rafters, her laughter rattling through the walls. The cattle refused to go near him, and the family dog whimpered whenever he entered the room. Even the air around him felt heavier, colder. The Bell family tried to hide his condition, but the community already knew. Visitors came to witness the curse firsthand. Some claimed to hear the witch's laughter outside the Bell home at night, circling the house like a predator. Others swore they saw a shadowy figure at John's bedside, a woman in black, her face twisted with rage. In December of that year, John's illness worsened. He could barely speak or eat. Lucy Bell, his wife, found a strange vial of black liquid near his bedside one morning. No one had seen it before. When the witch's voice rose from the air, she laughed cruelly. "I gave old Jack Bell a dose of my finest. He'll never wake again." Terrified, the family called for the doctor. When a small drop of the liquid was placed on a cat's tongue as a test, the animal convulsed and died instantly. The witch roared with laughter. "It was I who fixed him," she screamed. "I fixed John Bell." That same day, John Bell slipped into a coma. The witch's voice did not stop, not even then. She taunted him as he lay dying, whispering his sins, recounting his failures, and mocking his prayers. When he finally breathed his last breath on December 20th, 1820, the entire house went silent. Then, a moment later, the witch began to sing, a cruel, mocking hymn that echoed through the fields. "The old man is gone, but my curse will never fade."
After John Bell's death, the town of Adams hoped the haunting would end. For a time, it seemed the nightmare had lifted. The house grew quiet. The whispers faded. Betsy Bell, now pale and weary beyond her years, began to smile again. The family prayed that the witch's vengeance had finally been satisfied. But peace never lasts long when born from evil. In April of 1821, during a calm evening, the Bell family gathered around the hearth. The fire crackled softly, and for the first time in years, laughter filled the home. Then, a faint giggle echoed back, a giggle that wasn't theirs. The air turned icy, the flames dimmed, and the voice they all feared returned clearer than ever. "Did you miss me?" the witch whispered. Panic spread. Dishes shattered on their own, chairs tipped over, and the doors slammed violently. The Bell Witch had returned, not to kill, but to remind them she was never truly gone. She tormented them through the night, speaking of faraway places and future tragedies. "I will be back," she said. "7 years from now, I shall visit again." True to her word, the witch's presence vanished the next morning. The Bells were left shaken, unsure whether to believe her promise. 7 years later, in 1828, she returned as foretold. Richard Bell, one of John's sons, documented the event in his journal. The spirit appeared, not with violence, but with an eerie calm. She spoke of unseen realms, of heaven and hell, and of mankind's fate. Then, just as before, she disappeared, saying she would come again one day when the world was ready to remember her name. Centuries passed, yet locals still whisper that she roams the hills of Adams. Some claim to hear her voice in the wind. Others see lights dancing near the old Bell property. The cave near the Red River, known now as the Bell Witch Cave, is said to echo with her laughter. Visitors have reported cold touches, strange photos, and whispers calling them by name. The Bell Witch became a legend, but legends are born from truth. And in the lonely fields of Tennessee, where shadows fall long and the air hums with secrets, those who listen closely still hear her faint, mocking whisper, "I never left."